Welcome to this video around the Ruy Lopez, also called Spanish Opening. We have the main opening here, and this is what we're gonna cover on the white pieces. So after e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5. Obviously, there's a lot of content there, so I'm gonna go with my repertoire using d2, d3, and we have 4 parts there. Now, the first part we're gonna cover is gonna be the main line, and I will explain why to use d3 because it has slightly less material to cover to understand and still being used by top players such as Magnus Carlsen. So now we go, so far so good, and here d3. Now the main line of the Ruy Lopez will be castle, maybe bishop e7, you do rook e1, let's say b5, bishop b3, castle, c3, and then you have d5 or d6, right? That would be the main line. But here, d3 is important, and the way to build the advantage here is to slowly prepare maybe c3 and d4, maybe h3, knight d2, not like that, knight d2, and prepare for a strong center. So d3, and the most common move after b5, bishop b3 is bishop e7. That would be the same moves that black would play if white decide to go castle, rook e1, and c3. So now in this position, there's also many moves you can go for, but I'll go with castle, and here d6, waiting before castling, and here I will go with a4. Why a4? Very simple. We're trying to put some pressure here on the b pawn, and we have some pressure against the rook. So a4 is a good move. Now, just to be clear, c3 is a move, and a3 is a move. So the Spanish opening is very rich, but in this video, let's go with the main ideas and how I would play with the white pieces. So here, a4. Now there's many ways to defend, but rook b8 makes sense. Now, of course, you could also push b4, and then a5 would be good for white. So what's logical is rook b8, defending b5. So now we continue, take, knight b d2, castle, and here you have again several moves, but you could play h3 or c3. I'll go with rook e1. Now bishop d7 played in the main line, c3, rook a8, take, and d4. Now this position was reached by Magnus Carlsen against Topalov, and he won the game. So more to that toward the end of this video. But here, if we recap the opening from the start, bishop moves back, now we simply castle, we play a4 to attack, bishop d7, keep in mind that bishop e6 will be a move and you would take, and you're gonna play against the double pawn by continuing with c3. Anyway, in the main line, bishop d7, c3, the plan of c3 and d4 is the main idea, rook a8 to contest the a5, and now d4. And that's an exciting game that I will show in its entirety at the end of this video. But right now, let's continue our repertoire against, one e4, e5. Now moving on to the second part, when black plays bishop c5. So let me show you the start position here, where black has a more active way to develop the dark square bishop. Now bringing on the board, we have this position. What is the right plan for white? So here we're gonna do castle, e3. And now there's a choice for black. If black were to do castle, you may have bishop g5, h6, bishop h4. And believe it or not, if black would take g5, you could just capture and have a very strong attack with king h1 and f4. So in this position, instead of doing castle, black could try h6, which is an interesting move. Then you would do knight bd2. That's probably the best way to go forward. But because we didn't play h3, bishop g4 is a move you may encounter. And we're going to go with that move and explain the idea. So here you're doing rook e1, castle, h3, and bishop h5. So you may say, well, now we have a pin here and black is doing fine. But actually, bishop g5, we have our own pin going on here. And let's say in a game, I'm going to follow rook b8, we do g4, bishop g6, and now knight bd2. And the idea is very simple. Knight f1, followed by knight g3, knight f5. And as you can see, white has this pin over here. You also have this idea of bishop d5, and you have a much better position. So that's how you can take advantage of the move bishop c5. Yes, black has an active bishop, but you have to keep in mind that white can use bishop g5, putting pressure here. So let me just recap the entire line, starting from the beginning. And here, bishop c5, we castle, and we play c3, and we tempt black into doing bishop g4. And now, we continue, and right now, what we do is bishop g5, and we have a very strong pin, because that bishop is here. Therefore, for our own pin, we have knight bd2 and g4 available. So the game, and here you continue knight f1, knight g3, knight f5, and you're gonna have a strong game attacking the black king. So let's move on into our Spanish repertoire. For the part 3 now, we're covering 3 knight f6. The name of this variation, the Berlin War, and Kramnik did very well against Kasparov in his World Chess Championship 22 years ago. Now, how to tackle that with white? That is more difficult than it seems, but here's the chess and latte recipe. So we're here, and here again, we're doing with a d3 move. Now, obviously, the most ambitious and mostly played at high level is bishop c5. So now what I recommend, we're going to go by taking, that takes, and queen e2. We are not castling, we are keeping planes open for the king to castle short or long. That's the most flexible. So here, queen e7 is the answer. So well, if white is not saying where to castle, black is waiting as well, doing a useful move, covering e5, and we're gonna see what to play with white. Now, you may face also knight d7, covering e5. Now, I recommend knight bd2, castle, knight c4, rook e8, and here bishop d2. And who played that with the white pieces? Hikaru Nakamura. Who was against him in this position? Magnus Carlsen. And yes, Hikaru won that game. That was a rapid game, I believe. All right, so that would be for 97 variation. Now, queen e7 is very logical. You develop your pieces. Bishop g4 makes sense. e3. Preparing maybe b4. So knight d7 played, very classic. b4, the bishop retreats, and now knight c4. f6 plays to protect e5, and here what is the right move for white? We're following a Carlsen versus Wesley So game, and Magnus Carlsen, who plays this position with white and black, right, went for knight e3. And that's a very good move because you're targeting f5. Obviously, you cannot do g6 because then g4 traps the knight. And here a5 can be played, but you simply do knight f5. And here you take, and in the game, castle, and I like white better. You have here a very nice knight. You have, you can develop bishop d2 or bishop b2, maybe c3, d4. You have a lot more flexibility with the white pieces, and Magnus went on to win the game. And we are now ready to go with part 4, all the sidelines that you should know to play the Spanish. So here I'm showing two, but there are many different lines. On the left side, there's a g6 with a fianchetto by black. On the right side, we have f5, a very direct attack starting on move 3. So let's cover these two lines next. So maybe here I will start with f5. So here again, we go with d3. Knight f6, castle, bishop c5. We've seen these kind of moves before, and now queen d3 the right move. Why so? Obviously black cannot castle because you do a check and you're winning the bishop. So here d6 is a move, and now queen c4 anyway to prevent castle, queen e7, and here you go with b4. Now there's going to be bishop e6 played. You take, move the queen, and here you do a4. You're threatening a5, and you have a good position with the white pieces. So that's my recommendation. Again, f5. Don't go with a very complex line, knight c3, but instead go with d3. Okay, so that's line number 1. Now let's see line number 2. Now, to finish this overview of sidelines, I like to present a second setup with black. So black starts with the same initial moves, but now go with d6. You continue c3, and now g6 with a fianchetto, bishop g7. This is very different because we've seen before the bishop coming here, or sometime going to c5. But g6, that's an interesting try by black. We castle, rook e1, and now knight bd2. So that is pretty clear. So black will try to do h6 and f5 after moving this knight, and white is going with a plan to play in the center. So let's see concretely how we go around that. h6 to prepare f5, knight f1, b5, we move the bishop here, and now instead of doing, you could do either knight h5 and f5, but in this game d5 is played. Okay, bishop d2, bishop e6, a4, queen d6, b4 taking some space, and now bishop b3. So after take and take, we have Nietzsche with white against Akopian with black. We can see that the knight here will jump to e3 and to d5, right? Now, you have to keep in mind that when I explain here knight bd2, the other plan would be to do, let's say, directly knight h5, and on knight f1, black can go with f5, but now you're going to have this bishop g5 coming, maybe knight g3 coming, so that's why sometimes it's better for black to prepare with h6. But that's also possible, and I want to mention that sometimes black tried knight d7 with the idea knight c5, and with king h8, f5. So that's basically the plan I recommend. I will follow once again the main line that I recommend in this case. We do knight bd2, bishop d2, and now we start by opening on a4, followed by b4 and bishop b3. a4 played, b4 taking space, and now you have the plan knight e3, d5 with a good game with the white pieces. You also have some pressure on the a pawn. So black has to solve the issues here, and I would say that white is better in this setup. I think this concludes, part 4. Now what I would like to do is the following, which is showing the game number 1 in a main line between Magnus Carlsen and Topalov, which really illustrates the plans for the white pieces. And with that, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one.